Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order and welcome everyone here tonight. Can you join me with the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So roll call tonight, we have 4 board members in attendance, 3 are absent. So Director Atkinson, Director Burnick, and Director Olstead are absent tonight. And in Director Burnick's absence, I need to appoint a treasurer, and I would like to appoint Enrique, Director Velazquez, as our treasurer this evening. We can move on to open forum. In accordance with Policy 203, a 15-minute time period is set aside to receive citizen input through this open forum segment on the board agenda. Sign-up sheets are available at least 10 minutes prior to the meeting time at the door. So I will read the open and public forum rules. Input from students, staff, parents, and community members in major decisions can be a valuable form of assistance to the board. Open forum is an opportunity to address the board. Only those whose names and addresses appear on the sign-up sheet at the time of the meeting is called to order shall be permitted to address the board. Up to 5 speakers shall be provided a maximum of 3 minutes, 15 minutes total, to address the board unless an exception is granted by the board chair. Speakers will not be allowed to verbally attack, disparage, or potentially defame individual board members, employees, or students, nor may speakers use vulgar or profane language. Also, speakers may be precluded from disclosing personally identifiable private data regarding employees or students. Speakers unwilling to conform to the rules or time constraints may be told his or her privilege of speaking has ended. Board members shall listen respectfully to issues brought to them by the community, but not engage the individuals during their time. The board shall not deliberate or take action during the open forum regarding an issue presented. If follow-up by administration is necessary, the chair shall request that the superintendent follow up on the matter. When the board chair proceeds with the meeting, audience comments are no longer in order. However, the board members retain the right to call in district administrators for information to assist the board in its deliberations. Tonight we have 2 speakers. Our first is Bill Markert, and his topic is the 2023-24 budget.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. The district right now is forecasting an assigned and unassigned general fund balance of $19.7 million on June 30th. This reserve balance is roughly 17.6% of this year's expected general fund expenditures. Board Policy 701.2 requires the district to keep a general fund minimum assigned and unassigned balance of 8 to 12% of annual general fund expenditures. This policy is a floor. It is not a ceiling. Being above the floor as we are today and anticipate to be on June 30th should not give anyone expectations or authorization to spend our limited resources to get down to the 8 to 12% target. In fact, look at districts such as Osseo and Minnetonka. Their reserve balances over the years have averaged 3 to 5 times higher than their minimum threshold set by their boards. Our fund reserve has averaged about 15% over the last 7 years, or roughly 2 times higher than the lower end of our target range of 8%. The takeaway here, our current general fund reserve balance is not out of line, nor is it excessive. As the financial stewards of the district, the board is responsible to its taxpayers to maintain a prudent fund balance for many reasons. It helps the district maintain flexibility and a strong credit rating, should we ever have to issue more debt. It gives the district available funds to pay for any new unfunded mandates likely to be enacted by our current legislature. It helps the district cover unexpected revenue loss or unexpected expense hits we may incur. And it helps fund existing operations while we go through experiencing flat to declining enrollment and high inflation. Now is not the time to materially deplete our reserve, especially since administration has not shared plans with how they intend to pay for the proposed recurring shortfall in future years. Additionally, Board Policy 701 states, and I quote, "The school board shall review the projected revenues and expenditures for the school district for the next fiscal year and make such adjustments in the expenditure budget as necessary to carry out the education program within the revenues projected, end quote. I emphasize, within the revenues projected. Nowhere in our existing policy does it state we can budget outside of revenues projected if we have a reserve above our minimum fund balance target. I believe that is why our fund balance as a percent of annual expenditures has remained relatively stable and healthy over the last I don't know, decade. I could speak at length about the lack of cost-benefit analyses for the 44 newly created positions and other recurring new expenses being proposed in this year's preliminary budget, costing taxpayers millions of dollars, but I only have 3 minutes to speak, so I'll leave you with this. The board should not approve a budget with such a large recurring deficit without first seeing the long-range implications and financial forecasts of how decisions made this budget cycle will impact future years. Thank you.
Thank you. Our second speaker is Rachel Carlson, and she's here on the subject of the Gifted and Talented Review.
I'm here tonight to address the Gifted and Talented program. What does it mean to be gifted? According to the National Association for Gifted Children, these are, quote, students with gifts and talents that perform or have the capability to perform at higher levels compared to others of the same age, experience, and environment in one or more domains. They require modification to learn and realize their potential. The NAGC goes on to explain that, quote, students with gifts and talents come from all racial, ethnic, and cultural populations as well as economic strata, require sufficient access to appropriate learning opportunities to realize their potential, can have learning and processing disorders that require specialized intervention and accommodation. I begin with this definition because it is very important to highlight the diversity found within this minority population of students. I have been deeply involved in the advocacy of gifted programming in PLSAS for about 10 years. I have spent countless hours working directly with these students, chaperoning and volunteering on their behalf. These children deserve to be identified and challenged appropriately so they do not fall victim to underachievement, social isolation, and academic disinterest driven by boredom. On April 10th, I attended the Teaching and Learning Advisory Committee where Gifted Program Review was being discussed along with Spanish Immersion Program. Some notes I gathered from this meeting are that PLSAS intends to learn from neighboring districts and their successes, that PLSAS plans to expand their view of gifted programming, that the program is currently very segmented towards SAGE. All students have lots of gifts and talents that aren't classified as to what is screened for SAGE, looking to have a more inclusive net for SAGE identification process and for other ways to identify students, and there's been a lot of teacher turnover since 2020. Not all identified students choose to attend SAGE. Additionally, there was discussion of lack of integration with non-SAGE students within the school and that this negatively impacts their social emotional transition into middle school, which somehow did not seem to concern the district in the Spanish Immersion Review, which is strange since those students are less integrated for up to 6 years as compared to 3 in SAGE. That there's a discussion of combining SAGE math and science with non-SAGE students, that the SAGE classrooms are no longer together within the school but now separated into hallways by grade, that there is a benefit to students staying in their neighborhood schools rather than attending an immersive gifted program. After reviewing my notes and hearing from district parents, I would like to ask the board this. Why are we so afraid of allowing this unique group of students to achieve academic greatness? By giving gifted students the tools necessary to meet their full potential, it does not take away from other students' experience. We should never compare one student to another because each of them are unique. We are an independent school district. Let's stop comparing our district to those around us and begin focusing on what is important, the success of every student in our district, because success breeds success. In the wise words of the great Nelson Mandela, fear of success is far more dangerous than the fear of failure. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes open forum. We need to approve the agenda for this evening. Can I get a motion for that?
So made.
By Director Bullion, and a second?
Second.
By Director Velazquez. All in favor?
Aye.
That passes 4-0. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda. So consent agenda items are considered to be routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or citizen so requests. in which event the item will be removed as a consent agenda item and addressed. In tonight's consent agenda, we have the financials from March 23 and April 23, which include the check wire transfer disbursement summary, wire transfer, EFT, and ACH banking activity, the bank reconciliation statement, PMA financial, monthly wire detail, monthly health dental wire detail, monthly check detail, and monthly ACH detail. We also have our monthly enrollment report, approval of school board minutes from April, personnel invited items including candidates for employments, resignations, terminations, non-renewals, leaves of absences, and those are all listed in board book. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So made.
By Director Velazquez, can I get a second?
Second.
By Director France, all in favor of approving the consent agenda this evening?
Aye.
That passes 4-0. Next, we will move on to the resolution for acceptance of gifts. And bear with me a moment. I will read them. We have a few this evening. So, PLS Optimist Club for reading program resources at Hidden Oaks and essay contest at PLHS. The Westwood PTC for 5th grade BizTown field trip. Cargill for scientific glassware for Prior Lake High School in kind. Schwab Charitable for books and supplies for La Ola del Lago. PL Lions Club for end of year awards. PL Savage Optimist Club for CES youth programs, and also PL Lions Club for the same. Can I get a motion to accept, oh, I'm sorry, this roll call vote, I always forget that. Director Bullion?
I think I say aye, or yes,
Yes.
or yay. Aye.
Director France? Director Velazquez?
Aye.
Aye. That passes 4-0 by roll call. And tonight we have Laker Pride. We have one Laker Pride topic tonight that I'll pass off to Dr. Thomas and Director Sam Oak.
Thank you, Chair Crosby, Board of Directors. This evening, we have a student that we would like to recognize, Sienna Thinelk. And I had a chance to meet her at an APAC meeting and her family. And then I was also invited to the Minnesota Indian Education Conference recently at Mystic Lake, and was able to come into this session. And I've been to many conferences over my years, and you always hope that you walk out with something new that is inspiring, that can really help you. And this is one of those sessions where I had an opportunity to witness her, along with two of her peers, really speak about their experiences in the hard sciences, and taking on the fact of being a Native individual, as well as three young ladies. It was very impressive to understand how impactful their work has been to so many, and that has been picked up as well by PBS. So with that, I want to let Director Oak come forward to speak a little bit about that opportunity, and then we'll invite Sienna to come forward as well.
Sure, and Dr. Thomas have already stated a lot already about the episode there. It is on YouTube right now, so you can certainly go back and search that and view that. Honestly, there was 3 people on there, but I thought Sienna was the star of the stars on the show. I've known Sienna and her mother, Ms. Thinelk, through our work with APAC, and Sienna is an outstanding student, a student leader, and I could not be more honored to be part of this Laker Pride Recognition Day.
She's also very humble or shy or both, and so I would respect that. But if you wouldn't mind, Sienna, we would like to, anytime one of our Prior Lake students receives such national recognition, such as this, we want to make sure that we puff our chest and brag and do our happy dance on your behalf. So thank you so much for being a great student and a great leader in our community, and look forward to the many great things that you'll do as you go into your next phases of life. So if you want to come forward, we have a certificate for you. This is your photo op.
Okay.
I should have asked, is there anything you want to say at all about your experience briefly? Right here?
About the
Yeah, about your,
episode?
yeah, about the episode and like what prompted your interest to want to get engaged with this and just overall, what was that experience like for you?
The experience, it was actually really nice because not often do I get to participate in such things that like I can like talk about my culture and stuff, and where I can participate with other peers, because like there's not like too many Native students, or like I don't really like get to participate with other Native students or like other like Native people my age and do. And it's just also really nice because although I kind of like knew most of the stuff that we were talking about in the episode, I know that some people wouldn't have known, so it was nice to be able to share that knowledge with other people and let them know about like what I believe in and then what my people used to believe in and like how that like relates with the science today. And I just like really hope that it would be good for younger Native kids especially to be able to look on and see at least like that representation in like the science field and stuff like that. So
It's not beautifully said. Beautifully said. Congratulations.
oh, could you go
Congratulations, Sienna, and thanks for coming tonight. I just added, watch that episode to my to-do list, so I think we probably all did. It's always fun to recognize the great things going on in our district. And we will move on. Next on our agenda includes personnel items. The first is appointment of Executive Director of Administrative Services. Do you want to share some, well, let me open it up with a motion, please, to approve.
So made.
Made.
By Director France, a second.
Second?
By Director Velazquez, okay.
Thank you, Chair Crosby, Board of Directors. Tonight, there's a couple of personnel items that I'll be speaking to for context. This evening, I am bringing forward a recommendation for a permanent recommendation for a permanent position for Emily Herman to take on the appointment of Executive Director of Administrative Services. As all of you know, that position was vacated unforeseen right before the school year started, and asked Emily to step forward and be the interim in that time frame. We weren't going to have a pool of candidates to really cast out a posting, so we decided to have that interim role. And in the normal spring cycle of hiring, that position was posted open competitively to inside and outside of our organization. And Ms. Herman has definitely rose to the top. And just want to say that she has done an outstanding job this school year in that interim seat, and very honored to make a recommendation for a permanent appointment for that position for her.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board?
The only thing I want to say is I can just say that working with Director Herman has been outstanding, and I'm very happy that we have taken her on as the full-time permanent executive role. Would agree.
I echo that, especially as we navigated through several very challenging, you know what I mean. Yes, thank you, contracts. Sorry, get a little
That too.
punchy. Yeah, some very challenging contract negotiations. You managed them all extremely well with complete transparency for the board, and it has been quite refreshing. So we look forward to removing that interim title from your title.
I second all your feelings. So all in favor of the appointment of Executive Director of Administrative Services?
Aye.
Aye. That passes 4-0. Thank you, Emily. Secondly, the next thing in personnel is administrative title change, and this is, the board is requested to approve this change effective July 1st. Can I get a motion to approve the change?
So made.
By Director France, and a second
Second.
by Director Velazquez.
Thank you again. So just to give a little context to this one and the following one too, we have, I think most districts that I've been a part of at least, have had special assignments of a variety of positions. You might hear of a POSA. In this case, Dr. Edwards was a POSA, a principal on special assignment. There have been social workers, teachers on special assignment, all kinds of OSAs. And this was a conversation I had with the administrative team when I first started, because my challenge with special assignments that I've seen have been contracted positions, and they're able to call that a special assignment to bypass certain requirements. And I'm all for special assignments as long as they're time limited and very scope specific. And this situation, Dr. Edwards, we went through a transition of having an assistant superintendent. That position was eliminated. We brought in Dr. Edwards as a POSA, a special assignment for the role that he's doing, which is effectively the job that formerly existed. And though I appreciate Dr. Edwards' leadership and all his commitment to doing what he's doing, it is not right to put somebody in a special assignment when we know that this is a full-time contracted position. And so special assignments are something that I'll be really closely analyzing and eliminating. That's been a conversation we've had since I've started, and this is the first of a couple that I think are going to get addressed. If we have a need, which we desperately do, with Dr. Edwards' role, and this role is the Executive Director of Academic Services, leading all of what happens in our schools with principal support, a lot of work with departmental supports on the academic side of the house. And yes, he and I are like shadows of one another quite frequently, but he has a significant role. And this is a role that I don't believe is a special assignment. It's not time limited. This is something that we're always going to have a need for. And so for that, I'm making a recommendation to change his title to the Executive Director of Academic Services to reflect the same scope that you just approved prior with the Director Herman's role.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the board?
I just want to make clarification. So prior to this, we used to have both the Director of Teacher of Learning and an Assistant Superintendent. We eliminated, we lost our Director of Teacher and Learning and eliminated the Assistant Superintendent and essentially put Dr. Edwards in that role of playing both roles. So that's an important distinction. So the job responsibilities have greatly increased for that individual role.
And thank you for bringing that up, Vice Chair France. And I would add to that that we are not bringing back the director role. We're keeping with the assistant director that currently exists there as well. So we've actually merged those two, as you stated, into one shared position.
In teaching and learning.
In teaching and learning, yep. So there's no longer an assistant superintendent and a director. It's just one individual now.
Other comments? Okay. All in favor of this administrative title change?
Aye.
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 Passes 4-0. We also have a memorandum of understanding that the board is requested to approve for the 23-24 agreement for Assistant Director of Teaching, Learning, and District Improvement and Middle School Assistant Principal. There's obviously more information in your board packet. Can I get a motion to approve?
So made.
Director Velazquez, and a second?
Second.
Director Brilliant.
And so this last one is one that the board has supported this year, and next year will be the final year of this agreement. between these two positions, where we had individuals in those positions that really needed to grow in very different ways. And through conversations with these two individuals, there was an agreement between them, those two leaders, the assistant director and a current middle school principal, to essentially swap their roles for this year. And then next year will be the final year of that opportunity for the two of them. And then we'll make permanent placement decisions moving forward as to either they'll stay in those respective roles or they may go back to their own respective roles. This is something that's also been supported by each respective employment group that they're a part of as well.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Okay, all in favor of approving the MOU?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes 4-0. And now we'll move on to the approval of a resolution. So the board is requested to approve the following resolution. Resolution approving layoff of certain secretarial employees. And this is a roll call vote. Director Herman, did you want to elaborate on this a little bit?
Thank you, Chair Crosby. Members of the board, Superintendent Thomas, we are looking at some changes in the community ed department based off of a community ed program review that was conducted. And the Director Dahl brought forward these proposed changes to senior leaders and bringing forward today to take 3 of the administrative assistant positions and then actually restructure them into 2 different administrative assistant positions in different a different classification group for a couple of them. So with that, we did need to move forward with a resolution to remove the 3. The other 2 will be added back as well to accommodate the recommendations from that program review.
Thank you. Any questions or clarification needed for the board?
No, I believe this is the review that had been done earlier in the year under Director Dahl, and he did review it with the Community Ed Advisory Committee, and it was a very good review. It's going to make a lot of efficient changes as well as streamline the department.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, that's a roll call vote. Director Velazquez?
Aye.
Director France?
Aye.
Director Bullion?
Aye.
Aye. That passes 4-0. Next on the agenda is the approval of the 23-24 settlement agreement for the Emergency Preparedness and Response Coordinator. Again, the information is in the board packet. Can I get a motion to approve?
So made.
Director Bullion, and a second?
Second.
Director Velazquez, thank you. Director Herman, can you share any information, please?
Thank you, Chair Cosby, members of the board, Superintendent Thomas. As we were going through all the independent contracts and verifying, we did have 1 independent contract that was added this year with the approval of the new Emergency Preparedness and Response Coordinator. At the timing of that approval of that position, we were still throughout the process of settling our contracts. So the terms and conditions stated pending negotiations, so we needed to bring this one forward as well to match the other adjustments that we made to the contracts, all the other independent contracts with the same priorities to address the medical and dental insurance to hard dollar amounts, move the professional development funds to the 403B match all the vacation carryover language to be the same, change the phone language to allow for a district-provided device, and then adjustment for the next year's salary as well to match with the other independent contracts that were settled at.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Okay, all in favor to approve the settlement agreement?
Aye.
That passes 4-0. We have no unfinished business. We do have new business, and the first on our agenda is the American Indian or APAC committee presenting their written statement on the vote of non-concurrence, which we heard at the last meeting. This is a report only, no board action is requested.
Thank you, Chair Crosby, Director of the Board, Superintendent Dr. Thomas. Tonight, I have the privilege of introducing Ms. Thin Elk. She is the Chair of the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee. The American Indian Parent Advisory Committee works very closely with the district. Under Aaron's leadership, we watched the committee grow from 7 members all the way on up to about 20 or 30 members attending each of the meetings now. And this happened around February, March there. Every year, the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee needs to vote to see whether or not the district is concurrent with the work in meeting the needs of American Indian education students. The vote back in March there was non-concurrent. And when there's a vote of non-concurrent, a letter needs to follow it to state why the vote is non-concurrent. So at this moment, I would like to welcome Ms. Thin Elk up to the mic.
Mitakiapi chante washtenape chuzapi, Aaron Thinelki machiapi English, Wanakcha tokahe hinapiwi, imachiapi Lakota. Good evening, my name is Aaron Thinelk. My Lakota name is First Flower That Blooms Woman. And as Sam said, I am the chair for the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee this year. So thank you so much for having me. I'm going to pull up the letter on behalf of the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee this year and the vote for non-concurrent. Sorry, I just had it up, but. As I'm pulling this up, I just wanted to give you just a quick background. I'm a mother of 5, and I've been a part of the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee for the 7 years that we've been up here. And last year I was co-chair, but this is the first time that I've been chair of the committee. I've been very active on the committee, just not in an executive role. So I have a lot of background with the school district, as my oldest son did not graduate from Prior Lake School District. He had a very, very difficult time here, and he dropped out, unfortunately. My other daughter, Serene, she graduated from Bridges a couple years ago. I wished Bridges had been as strong and present as it was when my son was here, because I think he would have really done well at it. He needed it. And you met Sienna. She's in high school. I have a middle schooler that's in Hidden Oaks, and then I have a little one that's in Hamilton Ridge. So you'll be seeing a lot more Thin Oaks, basically. So yes, we have a lot of Thin Oaks in the school system, and we have a lot of lived experiences to share. And so I look forward to continuing to be a part of working with the school district to make it a safe and place to excel for all of our Native American students, for all students. Okay, so here's the letter. Dear board members and Dr. Thomas, the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee, APAC, for the Indian Education Program of District 719 Prior Lake Savage Area Schools, or the district, passed a unanimous vote of non-concurrence with the district's Indian Education Program for the 2002-2003 school year. This vote attests our belief that the school board and the district are and remain in non-compliance with the Minnesota law, thus not meeting their obligations to Native American students in the district. We submit the letter pursuant to Minnesota Statute 124D7, oh my gosh, my eyes, sorry, 78 sub D2, which requires the reasons for non-concurrence, and recommendations shall be submitted with a resolution of non-concurrence. Before we address these areas specifically, we would like to make space to recognize successes. We are continuously proud of our Native students, especially those who have stepped into leadership positions such as Native American Student Committee or NASC Chair Ava Wheelock. The NASC engaged their peers in the community this year through events such as sponsoring a bridge walk, hosting a booth at the cultural fair, and participating in Friday evening drum and dance gatherings, as just a few examples. Excitingly, many will attend the Native Skywatchers National Teen Ambassador Summer Camp at the Voyageurs National Park this summer. We would like to recognize and express gratitude to the Director of Equity and Inclusion, Sam Oak. His steadfast leadership and consistency in outreach supported group cohesiveness during difficult transition times within the group during COVID, with 2 new executive committees, and this year with a new Indian education coordinator. So thank you so much, Sam. We really appreciate you. We also extend our gratitude to our Dakota relative who has already brought great energy, insight, and ideas to the Indian education program, Freddie DeLeon, the new Indian education coordinator. Along with this year's executive board and amazing parent volunteers, we were able to host a number of well-attended student academic opportunities and family gatherings that focused on culture. Lila Wopila Tanka, immeasurable gratitude to all. However, our Native students K through 12 continue to face great challenges. Barriers remain, and education and equity for Native students at the Prior Lake Savage Area District continues to be a very real experience. We look to you as elected leaders, as elected leadership and decision makers to address our concerns with the recommended changes. 1, the achievement gap. The APAC has requested of the district to meet or exceed the academic outcomes of our Native students as compared with their peers. We believe the achievement gap is an important measure of how the district is meeting its statutory obligations to our Native students. We request the district invest in Indian education program strategic planning. I'm not sure that's ever been done. Specifically outlining how the district will support the one-person program with its goals and objectives, mainly to close the achievement gap for our Native students. 2, curriculum development. The APAC requests direct time with district representatives to discuss identifying, planning, and implementing evidence-based and/or tribal best practices curricula for our Native youth K through 12, either during Native Nations and/or through other classes or avenues. 3, bullying and harassment. Our youth continue to report disturbing occurrences of racism and bullying by non-Native peers during school hours with little to no successful outcomes, even reported to school staff. In addition, several of our high school students have shared experiences in their classes where teachers either did not respond to a racist comment or clumsily pushed it aside, making our Native student feel embarrassed and ashamed as if it didn't matter, or worse, that they sided with the aggressor. We look forward to collaboratively working together for the health, well-being, and academic success of our Native youth. Pilamalie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any comments or questions from the board as we move forward?
Sam, I'm not sure if you were addressing, I know that a lot of our achievement and integration plans and the additional funding have been addressed earlier, but I didn't know if you wanted to address any of these topics.
We have 2 goals in the Achievement and Integration Grant focused on our Native youth. One related to attendance and the other one related to family and student engagement. There. I think as stated earlier, we will continue to work and partner with our parents. Regardless of the outcome of the vote, we will continue to try our best to do what's right to meet the needs of our kids.
Other questions or comments from board members? Thank you for coming tonight and sharing the letter. I take it all to heart very much. I think this board definitely does as well, and I appreciate the time that you've put into this as the chair and really examining and looking at what's going well and what's not going well. And I know Dr. Thomas shared with you, and I think it was a true sentiment, that regardless of the vote, we need to keep doing the work and doing it better. And, you know, the intent is good, and hopefully we can become really good partners in the work and achieve a better experience for our students as we move forward. Thank you. Other comments, Dr. Thomas? Okay. Moving on to our monthly financial report. Director Frederickson, again, this is a report only, so do you have anything you want to share, or should I open it up for questions from the?
Thank you, Chair Crosby, Board Directors, Dr. Thomas. There's a couple things that I'll just point out. The revenues as of March were, for the general fund, were $10.3 million compared to expenditures of $9.8 million. So again, we're going to be seeing some additional things come through. This is a quarter end, so we haven't done all the billing for some of the grants. So there will be some additional expenses coming through. The year-to-date expenditures right now, as of March 31st, were $74 million compared to $68.8 million last year. So we have had an increase in year-to-date expenses over the last year of $5.8 million. And that's mostly, we haven't seen as many vacant positions. Our services and utilities has increased, and we've had expenses in LTFM and capital expenditures. So we're right on track with what we anticipated for our budget. If there is no objections, I would like to propose that this monthly financial statement will be included going forward in the consent agenda, unless there's reasons that you would like to discuss it later.
So kind of like the enrollment report. Yeah.
Correct.
Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't have any objections to that. And then if need be, we can make a motion to pull it out for discussion.
I think my only comment would be as if there was something that was notable, that it's shared.
Yes, I can certainly highlight anything that needs to be addressed in it.
Right, like out of the ordinary from one year to the other, or, you know.
And I think you try and do that in the summary, the written summary. But yeah, if there's more to it than that. Yeah.
Thank you.
No, I think that's a fine decision. I mean, we can always pull it off consent, so.
I like it, and quite frankly, I appreciate you putting it in this year. The amount of transparency that we've seen and the description of the balances, the expenditures, and particularly the detailed report compared to last year is really good. It's helped me quite a bit understand what's going on, how it relates, instead of having to do it manually and look back at last year's board report at this time. So it saved me a lot of time, and I don't mind at all, but I do want to reemphasize what Director Bullion said, is that if there are any surprises or changes, that they are highlighted and brought out. We don't have to actually go and try to look for them.
I will certainly make sure that we do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments? Okay, the next item is approval of issuance of 23-24 purchase orders. This is an annual approval that is sought to begin the issuance of 23-24 purchase orders for supplies that are needed prior to the preliminary budget approval. Can I get a motion to approve?
So made.
By Director France, and a second?
Second.
By Director Velazquez. Director Frederickson, anything we need to know here?
Oh, Chair Crosby, this is just kind of routine. We have secretaries that leave over the summer, and there are orders that need to get placed, or at least purchase orders set up, so that we aren't waiting till the last minute when school starts and they come back. So we're just asking just to have the purchase orders being able to be entered. They won't be purchased until after the new year, and we just need to get them in so they can complete their work.
Great. Any questions? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
That passes 4-0. Now we will just, Director Edwards will share with us an update on the Gifted and Talented Program Review. It's a report only, no board action is requested.
Thank you, Chair Crosby, members of the board, Dr. Thomas. Before we jump into the two program reviews that we're here to share with you tonight, just want to give a little context around the notion of program reviews. This is something that hasn't come to the school board in quite some time, and it was one of the things that became evident to me very early on in beginning the role that I took on last year. In the 21-22 school year. Specifically, having a couple of programs, specialized programs that we're going to share tonight with you that we wanted to take a look in each of these cases. They'd been in existence for a number of years, I think 8 and 9 or 10 years with the two respective programs that we're going to speak about tonight and just give you an update. So we launched that mid-year of last year of the 21-22 school year, continued that through the spring and into the summer and into this school year, and then brought them to closure in February-March timeframe, and brought them to the District Curriculum Advisory that has now been renamed the Teaching and Learning Advisory Committee at our meeting in April to share the findings of this program review. So we're bringing it here tonight to give you an update on that in a formal sense. But just know that these committees included representation from staff across the district that serve in each of the programs. So for example, in the case of the Gifted and Talented Program Review that my colleague will share with you some findings of that here in a moment. We had teacher representation, we had administrative representation, we gained feedback from our stakeholders, our students most notably, and to a certain extent parents as well, and took that into consideration as we bring forward our program review findings and our action steps moving forward. So I'm going to turn over the mic here for a moment to my colleague, Dr. Zumbush, to share with you about the Gifted and Talented Program Review. By the way, recent news for Dr. Zumbush here, received her doctorate, earned her doctorate last week, and was recognized.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Chair Crosby, members of the board, Superintendent Thomas, thank you. We have spent a lot of time and a lot of energy on these program reviews. It's been a little bit challenging because I would say that our program reviews are budget flexible in the sense that we kind of need to look at how the program is doing and how we can see some improvements in ways that are both cost neutral and potentially impacting the budget, just because we don't know for sure what the final budget is. So that's been a little bit of a challenge, but as Dr. Edwards said, we had a very representative committee from all the different buildings and community members. We also did an extensive amount of best practices research on Gifted and Talented, the latest research that we found on it. I did do an extensive data analysis to kind of review our current Gifted and Talented programming. And then we did have one meeting where we did a panel interview discussion of different districts across the state that are doing different things, so we could kind of get a landscape analysis there. With the Gifted and Talented Program Review, it really has two different components. One is the SAGE program in particular, and the other is how we're thinking about gifted and talentedness across the district. For the SAGE program, we looked at students who have ever been enrolled in SAGE, watched them over time. In general, Our students who attend SAGE are continuing in our system. They're not really leaving our system en masse. There was a little bit of exodus during the COVID period, but we actually saw some students return to us after some online programming. But in general, our retention rate of SAGE students over time is really good, and the outcomes of those students is really strong in high school and their academics and beyond. So very positive review there. We did find that it was a little bit disproportionate in terms of our student identification process. So that's something that we want to look at over time and just continue to keep an eye on because we want to make sure that we're doing selection in a way that's culturally responsive. So one of the things about gifted and talentedness across the district, we know that regardless of our SAGE identification criteria, that a decent number of students choose not to enroll in SAGE, and that is for a variety of reasons. The most common is because the family is looking for a specialty program, for example, the Spanish immersion at Loyola, or they have siblings that are in a school and they don't want to separate the two students by having them in different buildings. So those are the reasons why students might be identified for SAGE and stay in their building. We want to make sure that those students are still getting the enrichment services that they need academically, and so that's if you're familiar with the multi-tiered system of support, it's typically viewed as a triangle where we provide additional supports for students that need that additional support. We're thinking about it as a diamond because students that also need additional challenge materials also can be viewed as a student that needs slightly different services than that Tier 1 group approach. So that's kind of the shift and thinking about how we can, one of the things we've heard from teachers over time is that they would like some support on how to better differentiate to a wide range of learners in their classrooms, knowing that they could range in all different ways. And so really looking towards what support we can provide teachers on differentiation in their classroom and some of those coaching pieces there. I think we have some things that are, as the program review is done, but it's never done. And so there's some things that we're going to continue to look at over time. One of the pieces that we identified in the review is that math, there's a little bit of indication that the speed acceleration for math grade level is possibly having some negative effects for students long term, and really the point of that is that what we want to keep an eye on is making sure we're not accelerating students too quickly for the sake of depth of learning and understanding for mathematical concepts since they come back in cycles. And so we do have a new math curriculum that's coming this next year, and it's a really different way of teaching and learning math. And one of the things we just want to keep an eye on is what types of changes are we seeing in that depth of understanding. One of the things we learned in the math pilot was that this new curriculum really offers a lot to all students and really has that differentiation built in. And so we still have some things to learn about how that curriculum might fit with the SAGE or impact the speed at which we would accelerate students in math. The other thing is just thinking about gifted and talented from more of a talent development model, knowing that gifted and talentedness comes in a lot of different areas. It's not just necessarily academics, it's in areas of creativity, leadership, visual performing arts. Students can have giftedness in a lot of different areas. And so really that has to do with identifying students, what they're really good at, what they're passionate about, and really providing them opportunities to explore their learning in a way that relates to their passions and their strengths. And so that's just something that we really have that in place at the secondary level with the amount of choice that students have. There's not a lot of qualifications for entering classes. If a student wants to opt into an AP class or an advanced level course, they can do that. And so thinking about how we can provide more voice and choice for students at the elementary level to really find their passion and their strengths was another piece of the the program review. So again, there are some pieces that we are able to do cost neutrally. We did do a slightly different selection criteria this year. It's not drastically different, but we looked for more in the COGAT screener, which is our gifted screener, looking for the students who met at least 2 criteria as opposed to all 3, which gives us a little bit more flexibility in terms of a student if they're particularly strong in one area, not as, and by not as strong, they're still very strong, but just not excluding a student because one particular substrand is lower. It didn't drastically change our selection process. It cast a little bit of a wider net, but I think looking long-term, it hasn't drastically changed our selection. So it was just something we were able to pivot mid-year and kind of play around with a little bit and see whether we could do anything different. But I think long-term, it's really more of that talent development model, thinking about how we can think about different ways in which students are gifted and talented over time. But in general, the SAGE program is very strongly supported in the community, and that'll continue to go as it has been with some modifications and improvements, and really thinking more broadly about how to support gifted and talented services for all of our students. Anything you want to add to that?
Just make a comment, Dr. Zumbush referenced earlier, budget implications, and you all know as a board, we spoke about this at our most recent budget discussion, as it was one of the areas that we did bring forward as a possible consideration, was to increase our positions in the differentiation specialist, retitling that to meet the needs of all of our students across the district in all buildings K-8 with a half-time position. Again, not, but yet we still want to implement, regardless of whether or not that is funded, structures in place to support students, again, at all of our elementaries as well as our middle schools. So, any questions anybody has specific to that one before I jump into the second program review?
I had some notes that I had written down, just questions like when you, on the piece of paper that we got in our board book, like there's a section that says, what did we learn? And it said that you have an opportunity to shift from the traditional gifted child paradigm towards an updated talent developed paradigm in elementary, and that this model is currently in place at the secondary level. What are the pros and cons of changing the elementary from what it has always been? And it's been a little while since my kids participated in that, but they both did the Synergy program in elementary school. And then as I just recall that as they went into secondary, into middle school, that it just lessened and it kind of just went away. I didn't pay very close attention to it. So, but I am curious what the shift looks like and the pros and cons of that, changing from what we had been doing to having the elementary. 'Cause I just remember my kids loved Synergy, and so I'm just curious if you could explain a little bit more about that.
Sure. I'll take a crack at it and then certainly add in. But first of all, one of the things that we would like to do with the, or do within our existing resources, is to make sure that we are supporting our teachers in identifying those students who have particular interests to take them further, and supporting both our classroom teachers in that and utilizing our differentiation specialists to continue to support that. We really have gone away from that model in recent years. A variety of factors have come into play with regard to that, but we'd like to return to that where we are, again, supporting our students, but not solely in a pull-out model, more as a push-in model, as well as supporting the classroom teacher at the elementary level. Specific to the secondary level, that transition really is what we believe through our study here. Conclusion was we really do essentially have that talent development model going in into the middle and onto the high school, as Dr. Zumbush pointed out earlier. Students get a chance to specialize, get a chance to push themselves in particular areas. We begin introducing those advanced courses in the four core areas of math, science, and social studies in the middle school level, and that continues on into the high school level and expands to include other offerings, for example, world language AP courses, art, AP advanced opportunities. So really supporting students along that K-12 journey of identifying kind of where their passions might be, where their skills might lie, and have our resources committed to helping students develop those. That's really what's behind the talent development model.
I appreciate that because I can see how the students can take more ownership as they head into those secondary grades. That makes sense. Another question that I had jotted down was on the second bullet point, it says for math, we should consider depth of understanding as opposed to solely grade acceleration. And I may just be misunderstanding or not quite clear on what the grade acceleration really means as far as, maybe if you could clarify what that means, because my question was, how is the depth of understanding measured? How do we measure that understanding? By the teachers or the students?
Yeah, just take us back to our April presentation, if you recall, when we talked about our new curriculum adoption. That's really where this had come out, kind of coinciding, going on simultaneously, both the program review as well as our curriculum review in math. And again, we launched into that knowing that our math scores were not where we wanted them to be, and also that we have some students who, as Dr. Zumbush pointed out, maybe go the acceleration path. We have a criteria, we have a policy that specifically lays out what students need to do in order to be subject specifically accelerated to the next grade level beyond their age grade level, as well as full grade acceleration. And we continue, and we will continue to utilize that policy for those types of situations where students truly are above their peers, but also we want to make sure that they are challenged within with their grade level peers, because once again, we don't want to have it such that they have to go in that direction to be challenged. And so that's really the premise behind our adoption, going back to that math curriculum adoption that we spoke about back in April. We have had teachers who were doing the pilot curriculums, and specifically with the Bridges pilot curriculum, that they found all students across their class needs were being met at a greater level than our traditional curriculum that we were utilizing. So we're excited about that, implementing that in each classroom across K-5 next year.
That makes sense. Thank you.
I have a couple questions about gifted and talented also. It's a three-part question. First of all, I want to start with math. As a volunteer math tutor every now and then, I have noticed that accelerating kids based upon the grades that they get, when they don't have that in-depth understanding, they get to something like a pre-calc or a calc in high school, and they literally hit a wall because they passed algebra fine, but their depth of understanding was missing, and when they get to that level, they fail because they're missing some core fundamentals. I want to go back to what Director Bullion said, and how is this I love the new Bridges curriculum. I've experienced it before. I'm glad we're putting it in. But how is that going to help? Because that Bridges really doesn't impact the middle school. I understand how it may help with SAGE in elementary, but I didn't quite get the bridge, so to speak, into the middle school activity.
Yes, and we're actually engaged in that right now with our secondary teachers, looking at what are those curriculums that we want to evaluate. We actually are actively doing that this spring to identify some things that we will want to pilot at the middle school level. next year, and then the following year after that at the high school level as we continue to transition our students through our system. There are some changing standards that we're awaiting finalization on, but we definitely recognize the need to continue that notion of the depth of understanding. Our middle school teachers, a number of them have been engaging in some practices, instructional practices, similar to that which our elementary teachers have been engaged in over the course of the last couple of school years, building thinking classrooms particularly. We had our students, elementary students, come and share that with you as a board. And likewise, we're doing some of that work at the middle school, and we'll continue the development of that work. We happen to have a teacher in the audience who's been very highly engaged in that work, Tanya Shopper, sitting back there at the middle school. So we definitely are moving that work forward and throughout our system.
My second question has to do with many of the kids that are truly gifted and talented tend to show signs of boredom and don't necessarily are identified by behavior characteristics. In school, they actually go the opposite way because they're bored, so they don't do well, and especially those that are gifted in areas such as the arts. How are these transitions going to help identify those students so they are serviced in a more appropriate manner, despite the fact that they may not be performing at the time that they're tested above grade average?
Yeah, and I think it's always interesting to have some of these conversations with teachers after we get the COGAT scores back, because there's a number of teachers that are surprised at certain students and what their scores are based on what their working knowledge of the student in the class. Obviously, not always, and oftentimes it's confirming what a teacher might think about a student. But I think that's where that talent development piece really comes into play, where we're wanting to learn better as a system, and that's really kind of that paradigm shift of how do we really look and understand and identify gifted and talentedness beyond, right now it is a very traditional, we still are in that traditional paradigm for our selection process, which I think is fine, and there are students that really do need this accelerated programming. But also, how do we as a system learn and identify students who might have gifts in certain areas? And you're right, the literature shows that a lot of students that are having behavior issues do have a particular, they don't have a need being met, and that could be some sort of enrichment opportunity or boredom. So definitely something we're looking at, and that's something that as a system we just need to better learn and understand what those indicators look like and what they look like cross-culturally. There's a lot of good work that's going on in this area. It's something that wasn't a quick pivot. It's more of a longer-term vision of how do we, and that's kind of that vision of the talent development, is how do we identify and find talent in a way that doesn't necessarily show up on our traditional scores there. But the COGAT is designed really to identify students. It doesn't take into consideration behavior or anything. So there are students who would get identified through that that maybe do have some, behavioral challenges, and that's just something that we need to work with once they get identified that way.
Last question, do you have any questions?
No additional questions that haven't already been asked. Thanks.
I do have one question. I also just want to comment. It's promising and not surprising for me, just having, kids in the schools, to hear that SAGE, the retention's high. It's been a pretty positive thing in our district. I think families would say the same, and so it makes sense to keep supporting it, and your review has shown that as well. And it also is promising to me that we're not necessarily bringing back Synergy as it was, but giving more potential supports to Synergy, not Synergy. It will probably
Differentiation.
Thank you. Yes, for giving me the proper word, but the old Synergy, right? Bringing more resources, and I'm hearing you say it's a push-in model. So sticking with the push-in model, but more resources potentially added to that if we choose to go that route with the budget. My question actually is around voice and choice, because you brought that up at the elementary level. And at the high school level, I think it works really well because kids are older and kind of know what their interests are. Not that young kids don't, but I'm really curious of maybe some examples of what voice and choice looks like at the elementary level in your mind, or what's been discussed, if you're willing to share.
Yeah, I think it is actually some of those things that we have had success with in the past, bringing those to a broader number of classrooms, I think would be an example. I know some of those pull-out experiences previously were limited in terms of who could benefit from them. I think the vision would be that we would have those to be available and benefit to more students. I think, you know, we're engaging, back to the math curriculum, and I keep going back to that, but we're engaging in a lot of different ways with our students through that exercise of looking at how we build thinking classrooms, getting our students engaged in that at a higher level, and rather than the typical sit and get traditional learning. So I think that's where clearly we need to provide support for our teachers in developing that and supporting that so they feel confident in delivering those experiences for all of our students.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just add real quick. I think this new math curriculum really will give us a lot of really great ideas on how to do that. It's really built in. So like Dr. Edwards said, instead of the sit and get, it's really having students talk about numbers and discuss it and think about their, their cognitive track on how they got there, and, that metacognitive piece. And I think I lost my other point. Yeah, I had another point, but I lost it. So,
Oh, that's all right. You've been working on the doctorate.
Maybe
Yeah.
it'll come
Yeah.
back to you. When
Okay, yeah, you
I'm going to
can.
transition to
Okay,
the
yeah.
Spanish immersion, if I may, for a moment.
Yeah.
So also included in your packet was a summary, executive summary of the Spanish Immersion Program review. And once again, a program that has been in existence now. We currently have 8th graders. We're the inaugural class. So it's been in existence for 9 years. And we are heading into our 10th year. And those students are planning for a transition into the high school. So that was one of the reasons that we needed to come together to conduct our program review, was to prepare best for what that would look like. And you can see in the summary that we did, and we had been giving these updates to our Curriculum Advisory, Transition to Teaching and Learning Advisory Committee throughout the year this year, brought it to you as a board back in December as we put the course offerings out there for the high school. You can see again the recommendations aligned with that in that summary, that providing opportunity for students that choose to, again, kind of getting back to that, students do have that choice when they go to the high school of where they want to put their energies and focus, and if it is to continue the Spanish immersion experience, offering that for them. Also developing and continuing to support in improved ways what that looks like at the middle school level, as well as evaluating at the elementary level, the K-5 programming, where there might be some gaps in terms of the experience of the dual language immersion experience, and making sure that we are turning out students from Loyola del Lago, specifically the K-5 program, that are well versed in both English and Spanish, ready to be successful as they transition into a more English immersion experience as they move into the middle school, but yet maintaining their opportunities and experiencing experiences with the Spanish language. So again, you can see the summary of that work and the outcomes of that committee. I will entertain questions you might have around that.
I have a question. I was on the curriculum committee for almost 6 years, and I remember the discussions around high school and continuing Spanish immersion in middle school and high school. And there was a program that was considered at one time that was used for both native Spanish speaking as well as the advanced Spanish language, where it was turned into more of a literature class, et cetera, rather than a continuing development language where native Spanish speakers could also join in. And there was also the conversation of English as the second language of Spanish speakers, that sort of thing, where you reverse the critical thinking of the translation. And what I noticed is as we've continued this on, they've continued it more in the aspect of learning the language as they're developing rather than using the language. Especially when you consider students with, let's say, SAGE going into Spanish 2, and the more advanced learners, and the fact that native speakers don't get a chance to practice necessarily the grammar, but don't necessarily want to be a part of Lola del Lago. Has that been considered again going forward? Because I heard it hinted at, but I didn't hear it explicitly stated.
Yes, so we did move that opportunity out there as we transitioned to the high school, because one of the things that we found as this inaugural class, the numbers were such that in order to support implementation at the high school level, we needed to drum up some business, if you will, get some additional students engaged. And we were successful in offering that. We increased the participation in our Spanish, specifically the Spanish language class, by opening that up to native speaking students. It wasn't significant in number, but it did grow. I think we currently have 22 eighth graders, and we have 28 in the ninth grade class. So we did pick up some students, and we're going to continue those efforts, and potentially even consider bringing those efforts to the middle school level as well. We certainly have had conversations over the years about that, but we hadn't taken any action. So I think we saw that we had some increased interest when we did that at the high school level into ninth grade. So definitely something that we want to continue to have conversation about, kind of like Dr. Zumbush talked about earlier. While the program review reaches a conclusion here, it's not done. That's ongoing work that I think we want to continue to evaluate and look at.
Other questions or comments?
The only comment that it's swimming around in my head is, you had mentioned just making sure that there wasn't any gaps, and I know that, with all learners, some things are really they are really great for some, and some gaps do happen. So I appreciate the, I guess the acknowledgement of that, and considering moving immersion going forward. If you could just help me. I read through this a couple times, but where are we today as far as immersion going forward into our middle? Is this just talking about, in the future, or is this something that we've kind of started?
Yeah, so we have our inaugural class of students that started at Lowell are currently eighth graders, so they are moving into the ninth grade. And again, that's the numbers I was giving you. We currently have 22 that have remained. Another piece that you saw reflected in your report, I didn't go through it specifically, but you reminded me of a couple of highlights that I should have called attention to. We are also bringing in our largest group of kindergartners, 5 sections worth of kindergarten to next year. And the couple of things. First of all, the demand is there. Second of all, we know that as time goes on, we lose students because they choose to go in different directions. So we want to start with a larger number so that we maintain that going throughout Loyola and have a higher number of students coming into the middle school that might continue, making it more easy to staff and program for, as well as going into the high school. So that's a strategic move that came out of this study. The other thing I want to talk about briefly is an example of gaps. So currently our second and third grade teachers at Loyola are engaging in some conversation around when to introduce phonics and English instruction because it's very intensive Spanish in the early grades, kindergarten, first, second grade. But as we know, our students do take the MCA tests in third grade and continue that. And so, again, we're preparing them for that dual immersion, dual language proficiency, and when is it right to do those things so that we can hope to work to eliminate those gaps and prepare our students to continue success in both languages as they move through our system.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Edwards. I was going to actually ask a follow-up question with respect to the misalignment in the proficiency versus scope and structure of the dual language proficiency, because I know that topic has come up over the past couple of years with respect to MCA testing, especially where our Spanish immersion learners are performing at a certain level, and then they get to the MCA test, and then, we see that gap. Because I believe the MCAs are administered in English while they're learning in Spanish. So maybe you can
Yeah,
speak a little bit.
that's what I was specifically speaking about, is that we identified through this process a need to look more closely at that and have our teachers engaged in that, beginning here this spring and into the summer, and planning for what that will look like moving forward into next year. Another thing that you reminded me of is we referenced the Apple test as a test that gets at the language proficiency. To date, we've only given that in the 5th grade. We now, moving forward, want to give that in both the 3rd, 5th, and 8th grade to understand how our students are, and that's specific to their Spanish proficiency. So multiple data points along the way.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda is an update on BAR, which is at our high school, a program at our high school focusing on 9th graders. And we have Aaron Hester and Kate Eggerman here tonight.
And I'm going to introduce them real quick because I am really excited about their ability to be here tonight and share with you some exciting progress that's been made in our BAR program. We are in our 3rd year of implementation, and some amazing work has happened here in this year, and I'm excited to have them here to share about it.
While we get this up, I have to interject because I'm sad Sienna left, because Eco Team at the high school has been partnering with our Native student group, and we worked our tails off in the garden after school today, and she was planting many plants in the ground, so I felt like she needed some kudos for that too. So if you get a chance and are at the high school, please go out and take a look at our garden. Well, maybe let it rain first, but it looks great after today. So as Dan said, we are in year 3 of our implementation, and this is my first year with part of my FTE as BAR coordinator. And as far as I know, I don't know if you've ever received an update. So this is really exciting that we're here to be able to give this update, and hopefully technology is good. So we just wanted to give you a quick overview tonight of what we've been working on the past few years with our 9th graders. So this is kind of a little bit of just what the focus is, why 9th grade, the model we use, and then just a little bit of like what you would see with our students. So just a little bit of background. BAR is a evidence-based research platform that we are using to really focus on first our 9th graders and making sure that they are successful in 9th grade, because as we know, if they are successful in 9th grade, they are successful typically throughout their 4 years. And they perform better in school when they have a sense of community. they get more involved in the school community, if we can, kind of just get them ingrained right away in high school. And so that's kind of why the focus on ninth grade.
Nope, I think you covered.
Okay, well, and we
that
can
emphasis.
go through a little bit more. So when you look at this slide, we focus on these 8 strategies that really center around our students' strengths. So that's kind of at the forefront of everything we do as, really as ninth grade teachers, figuring out what our students' strengths are and how can we build on that. So when you look at these 8 strategies, it's all really looking at a collaborative system, working with families, teachers, support staff, administrators, just to kind of figure out, what our students need as they transition from middle school to high school and then beyond.
And I think the model emphasizes that collaboration piece. Something that I found super beneficial of BAR is it connects the dots from student to teacher to counselor to administrator to all those support people, and kind of takes a really big system and makes it a little bit smaller and more manageable for a student and their people at home.
And I mean, really for us in the building too, because we're not a small building. And this helps to, really help us kind of focus in what we're doing. So none of this would happen if we didn't have ninth grade teachers, counselors, social workers, right? And so I just wanted to make sure that you knew everyone who is involved in BAR at the ninth grade level. So that's the list, and they're pretty amazing people. So you can take a look at that. When you look at this slide, I think what we've heard before with these program reviews is like, just thinking about both quantitative and qualitative data. And with our teaming structure in BAR, it allows us to have that data and really figure out what students need in order to be successful. So you can kind of see, this is the cycle that we use, looking at data, trying to figure out the root cause, creating goals. And by the way, this is not just, I think sometimes when we look at root cause, we feel like it's maybe negative. That's not the case at all. A big piece of BAR is also celebrating when our students are doing really amazing things. So I just wanted to point that out. And then if you look at the meetings, these are our teams that we've created within ninth grade. So we have small block teams, which are now, the focus is social studies, English, science, and health. So kids are in essentially cohorts with those core teachers. And then next year, we will be adding in math as well. So it is a collaborative approach. So those are our small block meetings. We meet weekly, all the way up to our big block meetings where it includes everyone in that previous slide that you guys just saw. And in all of these, it is looking at essentially what do our students need holistically, but then also what do individual students need?
Our big block meetings happen quarterly, so all the ninth grade teachers and the members of Community Connect come together to just debrief what's going on, any trends we're noticing, and some goals we want to set for the upcoming quarter. And then the small block meetings and Community Connect meetings happen weekly. Tuesday mornings are the small block meetings, and then we have our Community Connect meetings on Wednesdays.
So we just wanted to give you like a quick snapshot of like a student journey. So I have 2 things to kind of walk you through. So this is, generally speaking, some of the things that we have done through the program. We've created mentorship programs with our juniors and seniors that work with our ninth graders several times throughout the year. That has been great. We are utilizing Laker time especially for our ninth graders, a little bit more with maybe fidelity and a little bit more structured for our ninth graders because, sometimes they need a little bit more. Families are more involved through our bar teams because like we said, it really is a collaborative approach, and we work very closely with families on like what's working, what isn't working, that sort of thing. So this is just like a general snapshot of what we might see with bar. And then we just wanted to give you maybe a success story, if you will. So this particular story is a little bit scaled into one student in particular who came to us semester 2 and really was lacking self-confidence, was a little bit lost in such a big building, and really, to be honest, avoided school. Came up in our small block core meetings right away, where we started like, okay, small classroom interventions, what do we need to do to sort of help the student feel more connected? Was brought to Community Connect, which is also includes our counselors, our social workers, our school psychologist, worked to create, along with the family, a little bit more of a focused plan. And as you can see, the student has gone from, passing one class to passing all, just about all of her classes now. She, went from not really avoiding school to she's here every day, which is amazing. And then I think what is maybe most important is just how she sees herself in our schools. And I think it's just a testament to the work that our bar teams do every single day.
Yeah. I think something that just in knowing the student and in kind of growing with them on their journey, the sense of belonging has been the most pronounced positive for them. They just feel like they have adult connections in the building, which, not to say that's not already happening, but for some students in our building and for some families, just getting that personalized phone call or, hey, your student came up in a meeting hoping to start a conversation about what supports we can offer them, which we might not have known about had we not had the opportunity to meet with such a small group of teachers, right, to start those conversations about the interventions that we can provide.
And I think what's really important is that we do this every day, but BAR gives us a formalized, systematic approach to making sure that we are giving our students what they need on a daily basis. So that is a quick version of what we've been working on for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
I'm very excited. So questions or comments from the board? I'll go next.
One of the questions I had was, what does one need to do to become a bar member? You have the list of teachers and counselors. What does that requirement look like?
Sure.
All of our teachers that teach a ninth grade section of science, social studies, English, and health are part of a bar team. We are bringing in math as an option for next year. We have other electives expressed interest in working on a bar team. We also have some special education teachers that are interested in working on a bar team as well.
So am I hearing you correct? All ninth grade teachers are part of this, or
All ninth grade teachers that teach English, social studies, science, and health. So they are all, if they teach a ninth grade section, whether that's honors or regular, they're on a bar team.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we do get, we do have, a lot of our big block meetings are PD related or learning that happens, especially with like classroom interventions that we can do and that sort of thing. So we do get that throughout the year as bar teachers.
I had a couple other questions. One was answered, how long have we been doing this? How much does it add, if anything, to a teacher's workload being part of it? I know, that is always a concern that our, teachers have a lot going on, and I'm just curious, what does this program add to them? And I'll ask another question. If I need to repeat it, I totally will, but what does the cohort look like? If you could answer those two things, that would help me.
Teachers meet once a week for 45 to 50 minutes in their teams to have these small block meetings. They collect data, they fill out a spreadsheet, which we then take to Community Connect. So they're meeting for roughly about 45 to 50 minutes a week.
Outside of their...
Nope, during their contracted school day.
Okay.
Yeah, usually 7:20 to 8 o'clock or 7:20 to 7:55 in the morning. And the second question was the cohorts.
Yeah, what does that look like for the students?
Yeah, so when we're scheduling students, we schedule them in teams. So we really try and keep students with the same group of teachers. So again, like I mentioned, the science, social studies, English, and health. This year we had 5 teams, so we could pull a roster of the 5 teams and their shared students. And those are the lists of cohorts that teachers are working off of. Would a student particularly know that another student was in their cohort? If they're very observational and it's like, oh, you're in my science class, my English class, and my social studies class, they might know, but it's not explicitly stated anywhere that they're in a cohort of students.
My last comment that I'll make, well, I have 2. I'm curious, what does the bar program cost the district? Does that program, was that an additional, I'm assuming, 3 years ago when we adopted it, that there's a cost that is attached to it?
Dr. Edwards, take that one.
Do you want me to take it? So, yes, so the FTE that Aaron is a part-time coordinator of, that's new this year. So previously, that program was funded, and it was a role that one of our deans, a portion of our dean's time, was done in our first 2 years of implementation. But we really found that we had a need to develop it at a higher level, and I think one of the key things that Aaron mentioned was the PD for teachers and support for teachers in the analysis of data. She's with each of those teams, a resource to those teams, and a portion of her time during a given day is committed to that.
And this comment that I'm about to, it's something that I had written down when I was going through all this. And I want to preface it that not discounting any of the work or any of the outcomes. When first reading through the bar handout and the bar, it says same students, same teachers, better results. My comment that I had written down when I was going through the board packet was that in a time where we continually hear about students having and needing more support, more than ever, how does the implementation of BAR, how do we substantiate the claim that same students, same teachers, better results?
Well, there's a couple things. One is that team approach. So formalizing the team structure allows all of the students' teachers to get the picture of the whole student, right? Because what I see in a student 50 minutes a day is just not enough, to be honest. It's, our day is so fast, and so being able to collaborate with the science and the English teacher is really important, so we can get like, okay, what's making this kid tick, what are we missing, that sort of thing. So that has been very helpful. The data collection that I do is also very helpful. You know, just I don't necessarily, I don't want to use the word tracking, but like paying attention to how our students are achieving is really important. And trying to formalize what that looks like, so we will have that over time is going to be important.
And to just kind of piggyback off what Erin said, we don't know what we don't know. So when we have these meetings, when they escalate from a small block to our Community Connect, we can bring more people around the table to create a plan for these students. Because if we're not having the conversations, we're probably not getting the information that we need in order to create these interventions that are meant to be quick hits. And then if those aren't working, then we can escalate it to that tier 2 support, which is our Community Connect. And then we go from there, right? We kind of triage as needed. So I think that's where my mind went when you read your comment. Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
If I may add to Director Bullion's question, the team's response to Director Bullion's question. You also mentioned that in the BAR program, we are looking at data to not just find out where students might be struggling, but you're also finding out and honing in, you know, when Michael accelerates, like what just happened, so you have the recipe for success. So I'm wondering if you can also just speak to a couple of things. So it's, you know, I might be teaching a section at 9th grade, but I'm still teaching other, you know, 10th, 11th, 12th, possibly as well. And so my scalability of what I'm learning from BAR and how does that pair with my larger department? So if you can speak to that interchange, that would be helpful, I think, to add to your question.
Sure. I think we've developed such a concrete structure of these small block meetings. So just like Dr. Thomas said, our teachers are having these conversations about their 10th, 11th, and 12th grade students. We're also able to collect this data and to share that with our entire staff. So that when a student goes from 9th grade to 10th grade to 11th grade to 12th grade next year, we already have those trusted adults in the building. We know there's a bit of their background. They have connections to staff that we might not have been able to create had we not intervened so heavily in 9th grade. And I truly see this becoming a school-wide approach to interventions. Starting in 9th grade, really heavy in 9th grade, but like Erin stated earlier, if we can get it started really heavy in 9th grade, it's gonna make those later years flow a little bit easier.
As having a sophomore in the school and looking at the teacher list, I can see the correlation. There's a couple of his favorite teachers are on that list, and that was probably since week 1 of 9th grade. And so just from listening and learning more, I'm assuming some of this might have to do with their success in how they build relationships with the students. So that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Yep, that's the goal.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I fully appreciate this model and the community effort to raise up and really educate the entirety of the student, embrace the entirety of the students as they come through the door. We don't know what other situations are impacting their ability to learn or to connect, make those social connections, but being able to recognize what's going on and then collaborate together to identify what makes this learner tick, what's really setting them off, where can we provide those additional supports. It's mind-boggling, and then mind-boggling in its simplicity of how you approach it, and the results are very clear. Seeing even just this one case where you have a student that had a lot of absences and wasn't passing except for one course, and then you see that complete shift to where they were just missing on one course and 0 absences. So that engagement is there and that commitment is there, and it's the work you're doing is a full testament to that. Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to reiterate what Director Velasquez said, as well as Director Bullion, but I want to hone in on something that that I think is equally important and we shouldn't forget about. First of all, the work of looking at the student holistically is incredibly important, and the results are, have shown worth, and the fact that we're focusing on that is fantastic. But the reality of the situation is that with 30-plus kids in each teacher's classroom, and teaching multiple classes a day, and using that morning time when other students are coming in, those that are in need of help as well as part of the program, as well as your regular students coming in for questions, makeup time, makeup tests, help with a program, a project, et cetera. That's still a lot to ask. So I'm kind of wondering, what we can do to make sure these programs are sustainable and growable, if that's not really a word, I know that, but but you understand what I'm saying, without burning out the teachers so that we don't have diminishing returns on those results.
I want to jump in just real quickly on one thing that is important, and this will be coming back to you as a board. If you recall, we put in for additional early release days next year. And this type of structure is something that we are certainly, and I know that the high school team has been engaging in conversation around, is how to do that on a monthly basis now that we have those additional early release days. So that's something that you'll be hearing next year. We'll be reporting back, as we promised, about how we're utilizing that time, and this would be an example of ways that we're going to utilize that time, not only to give additional time for our ninth grade teachers to continue the great work that they're doing, but also to scale that up to other grade levels.
Thank you, because that's exactly my next question, actually, of how that additional PD time and teacher meeting time next year that we did approve was going to play into this and hopefully help.
Yeah. And like I stated earlier, and Aaron touched on again with these small block meetings, our ninth grade bar teachers have gotten these meetings down to a system where they're having really effective meetings, so they're getting through a lot of students in their small block meetings. So we're hoping to bring those teachers alongside their peers to help them facilitate meetings about other students during those early release times.
That was my next question
Yeah.
too, because I think it was in March, at the March board meeting, we saw a representation of a data graph where it was showing, again, a lot of the combined data about students, and there was like a red, yellow, green kind of section on that. I don't remember what it was called, but I was wondering if that's the data you were referring to. And I don't have it in front of me, so I apologize for not, but it was a very comprehensive, very colorful data report with a grid on it.
Sure.
And it had colored squares in
Well,
it. And
our
it was
spreadsheets
yeah.
are very colorful.
Okay.
And we do, in these small block meetings, we look at students level 1, 2, and 3. So that is a component that we use in BAR. I'm not 100% sure if that was what was seen. But we do utilize a system of the students at level 1, meaning the classroom interventions they're receiving are appropriate for them. Level 2 would initiate them to Community Connect, and level 3 is a step higher, kind of for the administrative social worker counselor world. So that is something that we utilize, that we have found very effective, especially to touch on your point earlier of there are so many students that our teachers have to kind of talk about and get through, and that system has really helped categorize who a student's talking to, right? Are they fine on their small block? Are they elevated to Community Connect? Are they already working with another adult in the building that has a plan for them and their people at home? So that has been very effective and helping us use our time efficiently.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have one question, but first I just want to comment. I think I always talk about the value of especially a large high school, a school within a school, or a community within a school, and I think that's exactly what this model is, right? To create a little bit smaller environment and with more touches, so to speak. I love the piece about the link crew with the older kids mentoring the younger kids. I think, you know, you're a pretty lucky ninth grader if you come into ninth grade and you know what you want to do. You know what club you want to be in, you know what sport you want to play. I mean, that's not typical, and it changes too. And so I think this is great between the adults and the mentors to help walk through, like, here's what's available. You might like this, your interests might change, right? And it's very targeted. My question, because I think the work is so important and wonderful in what you're doing, so my question is, what barriers or what, I guess, I mean, that's kind of a negative word, right? But, or what opportunities do you see to enhance this along with, and like I said, maybe you already answered it with Director Francis, but what are the biggest barriers in terms of implementation? And I know we're in year 3. I know, you know, it's been a ride to get to this point, but it feels like it's in a great spot. So what other resources?
Well, I think time is always.
Time.
Yeah, and we're really excited to look at what next year is going to bring in terms of how we can, again, bring it to a more school-wide approach. Because there are so many wonderful things happening that I think could really benefit our upperclassmen. One piece that I'm really focused on, and we've talked about this, is marketing BAR, especially to our families, and just letting them know that it exists. We did a couple small sessions earlier in the year that, you know, a couple people came to, but just hoping that it becomes something that families at Prior Lake know exists and that they can utilize and how to utilize the resources that we have. So that marketing piece of BAR is something I'm excited to explore a bit more.
But you know, the families that were gracious enough to come to our BAR program all said that was their worry about, you know, their incoming ninth graders. Like, I don't want my child to get lost in this big building. And we were like, thank you. And BAR helps with that, right? To get these kids feeling a sense of community. But thank you for your question about barriers, because it is time. And, you know, the 6-period days, it is difficult, but we are thankful for the early release days because I think we'll be able to really utilize them.
Thank you. Thanks for coming tonight, taking your time, and we appreciate the work you're doing.
Thank you.
And I don't know how to get your screen back up and this off, so we'll just, oh, great.
Like that.
That puts us at our proclamations for tonight. We have 3 of them. The first is around Youth Appreciation Week, and I have asked Director Bullion to read that, please.
Yes, let me find it here. Proclamation Youth Appreciation Week. Whereas the vast majority of youth are concerned, knowledgeable, and contributing partners within the community, and whereas the accomplishments and achievements of these young citizens deserves the recognition and praise of the community, and whereas Optimist International has since 1954 developed and promoted a program entitled Youth Appreciation Week, and whereas the citizens of the Prior Lake Savage Area School District have indicated a desire to join the Optimists in expressing appreciation and approval of the contributions of youth, the District 719 Board of Education does hereby proclaim the second week of May as Youth Appreciation Week in the district. By this action, let it be known that we have faith in the ability of today's youth as they assume responsible roles in the future of humankind. Now, oh, I'm not going to read that part, am I, Amy? That says you.
That was going.
Now, therefore, Amy Crosby, chairperson of the Prior Lake Savage Area Schools Board of Education, hereby proclaims the second week of May 2023 as Youth Appreciation Week in the Prior Lake Savage Area School District.
Thank you.
Did I do that well without taking ownership of you?
Yes. You want to elaborate on this one at all, Dr. Thomas? I see we're invited to a luncheon from the Optimist Club.
Yeah, it's just, I'm sorry. I'll just share that it's, this is one of the largest Optimist Club participations regionally for us, and something that we should be proud about. You know, we have student board reps, we have students who are doing great things throughout our community, but what they're also doing is finding ways that they can also give back to really enhance that community. So I would just say that if you are able to make that, it's a great opportunity to celebrate their accomplishments and their involvement in really making this community a better place.
Thank you. I know we do have a strong partnership between the youth and the Optimist Club, and that's a really wonderful gift for our high school too. So, but it won't be possible without the youth.
If I can make a comment, I am part of the Excel mentorship program at the high school. I was able to mentor a junior and a senior this past year. The Excel mentorship program is partnered with the Optimist Club, and I have learned very recently in our end of the year celebration of our Excel students that earned the scholarship, that our Prior Lake Optimist Club is like known across the country, how big and how effective it is. And I didn't know that before, but now I have another club that I want to join, so.
Thank you. Our next proclamation is National Speech and Language Pathologist Day week, both. And Director Velazquez will read that for us tonight.
National Speech and Language Pathologists Appreciation Week is May 15th through the 19th, 2023. Prior Lake Savage Area Schools recognizes May 15th through the 19th, 2023 as National Speech and Language Pathologists Appreciation Week. This week, we celebrate our thanks and gratitude for these vital staff members, whereas each year during the month of May, the American Speech Language Hearing Association, ASHA, promotes Better Speech and Hearing Month to raise awareness about communication disorders and hearing health, and May 18th, 2023 is National Speech Language Pathologist Day. Whereas during the month of May, speech language pathologists throughout the nation make a special effort to inform, educate, and raise public awareness of speech, language, and hearing disorders. Whereas school-based speech language pathologists and teachers of the deaf, hard of hearing dedicate their lives to helping children in need and providing support in schools across our district. Whereas these professionals are essential to each school's exceptional student education team and are invaluable support resources for schools and parents. Therefore, let it be resolved, the Board of Education hereby extends its appreciation to all Prior Lake Savage Area Schools speech and language pathologists and declares May 15th through 19th, 2023 to be Speech and Language Pathologists Appreciation Week in Prior Lake Savage Area Schools.
Thank you. Just a little shout out to our speech pathologists, another small group in the special education department. We have about 15 speech pathologists throughout our district working with students, whether it's articulation disorders or communication disorders, supporting our center-based programs. They really carry a big part of our special education students and their needs. So thank you to them, and thank you for honoring them tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that sentiment. And having kids who have received the services, we know how valuable they are in our district, so thank you. And one last proclamation is School Communicators Day. Director Franz, will you read that for us tonight?
Sure. School Communicators Appreciation Week, May 8th through 12th, 2023. Prior Lake Savage Area Schools recognizes May 8th through 12th, 2023 as School Communicators Appreciation Week. Our school communicator professionals serve the critical function of an information liaison between a school district and its community, representing the district and various community organizations. This week, we celebrate our thanks and gratitude for these vital staff members. Whereas National School Communicators Day is being celebrated on May 12, 2023. Whereas transparent and effective communications about Prior Lake Savage Area schools, programs, services, plans, decisions, and priorities to students, families, staff, and community stakeholders are critically important. Whereas school communicators work tirelessly to ensure meaningful parental and community involvement through communication to build support for schools and the children they serve. Whereas school communicators commit to practicing communications, public relations in an ethical and comprehensive way that meets the needs and desires of all internal and external publics. Whereas school communicators serve as strategic partner to school boards and to district and school leaders to develop communication plans that support their missions and goals. Whereas school communicators work to amplify the branding and key messages of a school district to new and existing audiences. Therefore, let it be resolved, the Board of Education hereby extends its appreciation to all Prior Lake Savage Area School communication professionals and strongly encourages all members of our community to join in this observance, recognizing the dedication and hard work of school communicators, and declares May 8th through 12th, 2023 to be School Communicators Appreciation Week in Prior Lake Savage Area Schools.
I really like to emphasize that last paragraph that says all the communication professionals, and all for us means two. And those two leaders are absolutely outstanding. One of which we don't ever see at board meetings, but she spends her time in that back room really making sure that this goes off without a hitch, and is sitting in 85-degree temps. Just want to say thank you to Liz. She also manages a lot of our social media platforms to make sure that we are staying connected with our community there. So just a very dynamic leader. And Christy as well is also someone who has a really strong vision for the community, and really understands the ability and the power of us to be able to tell our stories effectively in a variety of different venues. And she has, allowed us to find different places with new publications this year, reaching new audiences, just really critical. Again, she's not a marketer, but she's definitely tapping into her marketer spirit, so that she's able to find ways to leverage, our story for the good to really, promote what we do here. And, lastly, I'll never forget when I first started, Christy was asking and preparing, I think, for maybe the opening workshop week and wanting to write a script. And I said, no, I don't need a script. I can't speak from a script. And it took her a minute to calibrate with my style of just speaking from the heart and kind of just follow my lead, So she has really adapted well to kind of staying in sync. And so the two leaders that I just mentioned, thank you so much. Appreciate everything that you all do.
Yes, thank you. I have no more I think you summed it up beautifully. That ends our proclamations. We'll move on to policy. We have no first reading of policy and no second reading of policies, and so we are on to board policy approval, which after many reads, we're at the final stage of approval for policy 806, crisis management policy. Can I get a motion to approve 806?
So made.
And a second?
Second.
Director France, Director Bullion. Any other questions or comments from board directors on this policy?
No.
Okay. All in favor of
Aye.
806? Aye. That passes 4-0. The second policy was suggested at a recent study session to bring forward for, to rescind board policy 491, which was the mandatory COVID-19 vaccination or testing and face coverings. Board action is requested to rescind this policy. Can I get a motion?
So made.
By Director Bullion and a second
Second.
by Director Velazquez. Any clarifications needed at the table? The emergency order has expired, so has the policy. Okay, all in favor of rescinding policy 491?
Aye.
Aye.
That passes 4-0. That leads us to our administrative reports. Superintendent report first.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Crosby, Board of Directors. I have about 5 or 6 things to really kind of quickly hit. First is the budget. I just want to thank the board and our community for your continued input to this process. We are going to be bringing forth our preliminary budget to you on May 22nd. We initially targeted for today, but I think there was some really good discussion and learnings from us as a team last week to look at different efficiencies and finding ways to reconcile, I think, some key elements of HR and finance to see where we can really solve for some of the challenges that lie ahead of us, yet still maintain our ability to support the priorities that we are identifying, that we've been sharing with you as well. So we also heard very loudly that there are still some concerns about the unknowns legislatively, and it just so times out that May 22nd is when the legislature is supposed to be complete. And so we will be planning to be bringing that preliminary budget to you, knowing, I would say, pretty much what's going to be crossing over the finish line. Right now, there's just a lot of unknowns, and we're speculating at best. But again, the trend is a lot of those large cost pieces of bills are coming off. And so that's actually a good trend. We hope that continues. So just wanted to let you know that, again, from last week to this week, as we're digging and reworking things, there wasn't going to be anything new for us to share, so we wanted to bring it to you on our regularly scheduled 22nd. Wanted to just highlight the Community Crisis Response Team and annual training that we just facilitated. A huge thank you to Haley Heidelberg as well as Joe McCall. They were our co-facilitators for that. This is to bring in many of our district administrators, staff. We had school board reps there, emergency responders from all of our municipalities, including the Shakopee, Minnewacaton, Sioux community, our bus association, Alina Health Systems, just a variety of individuals. And we went through our current plans and procedures through case scenarios to see how effective and how do we think about how we respond at scale to something that should happen. And I'll tell you, it was eye-opening for me. As a leader, to understand what your role is when you're in a big community crisis. So again, may we never have to use those skills, but a great opportunity for us to really partner with a lot of our partners in the community. In that same spirit, last fall we shared with you all as a board our desire to work with our local police to bring back random canine sweeps. And so we were targeting last fall, but we got that early frost that hit, and that kind of nullifies the dog's sniffers. So we waited until the spring. And just last Friday, we did an unannounced canine sweep throughout our parking lot at the high school. And just to let you know that there were 3 hits, but nothing substantiated, so there was nothing ever found. And again, there's a variety of reasons why that might happen, but nothing that caused us any concern. The dogs also were able to identify the planted hit, so they specifically put something in a vehicle just to make sure that the dogs knew, and they were able to pick up on that as well. So just a message to our community. We want to keep our campuses safe. We know at the secondary level, kids are beginning to explore a variety of life choices, and we want them to make the safest and healthiest choices. And this is something that we also believe is very helpful to letting our community know, specifically our students at the high school, that this is not the place for those kind of choices to be made. And just that was really positive. There is conversation that there's interest to look at this at the middle school level as well. So I'll keep the board posted as we work with our other local municipalities to conduct our random canine sweeps. But it's just part of our preventative protocols to do these. Just recently had a meeting with many of our realtors in the area, just this past April 25th. Thank you to Christy and team for helping put that event together. We had, gosh, I would say probably about 20, 25 realtors, brokerages, mortgage lenders, et cetera, here, and really a strong interest to develop a deep partnership, particularly from a marketing standpoint, where we can really leverage our real estate partners to be able to help tell our story. And so we've come up with a couple of preliminary ideas and strategies that many will take into effect. And one that really garnered some interest was the ability, particularly with some of our new home builders, of finding ways that we can promote our district by way of helping to decorate, the models that they are putting together. And maybe we are donating jerseys and things of that nature, painting a room in PLSAS colors, things of that nature. So just some great ideas that a lot of them are really excited to really lean in and carry that voice of the positive district forward. Want to just mention our retirement celebration on May 18th from 3:30 to 5 o'clock at the PLHS Activity Center. This is co-sponsored with the Prior Lake Savage Education Association. And I just want to congratulate the following retirees. I hope I got them all here. Nancy Buller, Julie Capal, Nancy Tice, Kimberly Dovry, Jody Ernst, Greg Hartman, Daniel Larkin, Mary Jo Luthmers, Beverly Null, Bridget Pope, Lynn Wizarick, Kelly Williams, Sarah Carpenter, Lori Hansen, and Tammy Lavon. Just want to thank all of them for their years of service here in our district, and can't wait for the opportunity to celebrate you and all that you have done for our learning community. And then lastly, this is our next business meeting will be June 12th after our students have gone. And I just want to put out a message to our students, finish strong. We've had an amazing year together, and especially, those who will be returning. I know our seniors are looking at their next best thing, but we want to wish our seniors well, and we'll be having some words for you at graduation. But all of our other students, I'm sure someone in here is probably doing a countdown somewhere. It's not long. So finish strong, stay in the game, and then we'll see you all next year. And for our staff as well, I just can't thank the staff enough for your hard work and dedication. Really appreciate everything that you've done to make this an amazing and exciting year for many of our students and our families throughout the community. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Any administrative reports this evening?
Thank you, Chair Crosby. I just have one, just for your situational awareness. With our investment firm, we have various banks that we have invested dollars in, and one of them, the First Internet Bank, is withdrawing from the deposit program, so we're switching to Valley National Bank, where we're actually getting a 0.1% return better on our investments. So it doesn't require any action, just so you're aware of just a slight change in our investment portfolio.
Thank you. Director Herman? Okay, thank you. Board reports, we have a special guest this evening. Ariana was not able to be here, so we're lucky to have Rahina here.
Yes, I'm going to be filling in for Ariana Olson, our student council president. So I'm Rahina Medina, and I am lucky to be the parliamentarian of the Student Council Exec Board, and I'm also the president of the Latinx Hispanic Student Union at Prior Lake High School. And I just wanted to touch on some things. The student body has been very busy this past couple weeks, and they'll continue to be busy until school is over. So starting off with Student Council, we have some general elections, which applications are going to be due on Wednesday, and then the ballot and whole elections will be next Thursday, May 18th. Then one thing that we've been able to collaborate with the middle schools, and I know all other student advisory groups want to participate in, is that Student Council went to the middle schools, and they were able to promote Student Council and explain to them the commitment, because it is a commitment year-round, and it is something that they have to be passionate about, but also explaining the fun things that they do, because everyone on Student Council is truly so happy, and so it's such a positive experience for everyone. So they just wanted to bring it into the 8th graders and say it's a chance to collaborate with administration, meet with under and upperclassmen. It's truly a really welcoming experience going into a new school. I know I was a COVID kid, but it was a truly positive experience for me, so we want to pass that down for 8th graders. And I know other student advisory groups like the Native American Student Coalition, the Latino Hispanic Student Union, Asian Association, and Black Student Union want to do that as well, just to promote and just to build a community once you grow into high school. So middle school applications will be due May 21st for any middle schoolers who are interested in joining. And that's what some initiatives that we're trying to do to bring both middle schoolers and high schoolers into a community, because they're going to be growing into it, so they want to get to know each other. Another thing that we want to mention was prom was last weekend. Super exciting. It was a lot of students participated. It was a really fun time. We had so many positive things like videos, photo booths, and one thing that they were able to add as an inclusion factor was they had a bus take students from the high school to prom, which I think facilitated a lot of people to be able to go to prom who maybe didn't have the access, which was really helpful, I heard. And then we're going to talk about the spring events that Student Council will be promoting. So we have a golf tournament May 15th, 3:30 to 5 p.m. at the high school around the practice fields. It's something new that we're doing, and we're really excited about it. Something else that's new is a pickleball tournament. That is May 17th, Wednesday, 6:30 to 9 p.m., also at Prior Lake. And then one thing, that's going to be like a full circle ending because we did a senior sunrise at the beginning of the year. We're going to do a senior sunset May 18th, 7:30 to 9:30. It'll be like, I think they'll miss a little bit of first hour, but they're really excited to just finish the year off strong. And then we have Surf and Turf, which is another one of Student Council's major events. It'll be Friday, May 19th at 7:30. We have a lot of groups are super excited about it. They're going to have food trucks. They're going to have, especially student advisory groups, they're going to be able to promote their club. The Latinx Hispanic Student Union is doing a dunk tank. I know other ones have done cornhole in the past, and they're really excited to just bring clubs together. And it's a really positive student event that we have at the end of the year, which we're really excited about. Student Council is also partnering up with Sonia's Hope for Children and a Bowling for Hunger event where we're raising money and canned goods for people in need. It'll be May 20th at Bolero, noon to 3. We did it last year. Our students loved it, so we're excited to do it again. And then one thing we want to mention is that Student Council won the Outstanding Student Council Award at the Minnesota Association of Student Council State Conference, which we're really excited about. And then one thing that a lot of our student leaders and student advisory groups were able to participate in was the Student Culture South Suburban Leadership Conference, which I know was a really positive experience. They were able to meet people from Rosemount, Lakeville, all around the South Suburban Conference, and we were able to get ideas for next year. I know I really had a good time. I was able to collaborate with different people and truly get a grasp of what we can do for next year. And then we were really excited to just finish the year off strong. We have AP tests this week. We're almost done. It'll be then on Friday. And our student body is really excited to, again, like Dr. Thomas said, finish the year off strong. So yes, thank you.
Thank you. May is busy.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a lot. You guys are quite busy, so thank you for that. Our students appreciate it, I'm sure. Any other board reports tonight?
I think the only thing that I'd like to say is coming out of the C committee meeting today, one of the things that was mentioned as we're dealing with the legislative session coming to a close, they are talking about a Public Employee Labor Relations Act. And what it does is it strips the managerial rights from the school boards. And so the gentleman who leads the C committee and he lobbies for C on our behalf, he just couldn't state strong enough for communities and school boards to advocate to keep the rights, to keep our, to keep the
Local.
Yeah, thank you so much, local control. And so I appreciate the committees that I've been able to, the meetings that I've been able to attend and the depth that it adds to my understanding of the district as a whole. And I really appreciate the people leading, like the C committee. It's incredible. I would never be able to know where to go, and so when we've had community members that have asked how they can help, how they can reach out to our representatives. And I'd say for any of you listening out there, this is one to, really to advocate for us that we do keep the local control. So that's all I had.
Thank you, yeah. We're getting a lot of that, whether it's from AMSD or MSBA or C,
Yeah.
that to continue to advocate. And so as the public, if they want to do so also on our behalf as taxpayers in the community, have at it. Our school could use your support, so. Any other board reports?
I do. So first of all, we have our ALC Strive graduation coming up and our end of year celebration. Along with that, we have several Strive students who also won Optimist, and ALC students who won Optimist scholarships, as well as will be at the Optimist luncheon this week. So I'm very proud of that. We also have the MinCaps famous Shark Tank competition and judging competition coming up. That is a great opportunity for people in the community to get involved and help judge. I believe they're still short about 12 or 13 judges, so hopefully people do look that up. We had our community education end of year celebration that I did miss, but I understand, Julie, you went?
And Dr. Thomas.
And Dr. Thomas, that's great. And it was a great year to the end of community ed, so appreciate that. And then finally, of course, we have the advocacy for our legislative process going on, and as Dr. Thomas said, we did get a good win this week. However, I have been meeting both over email, text, and well as in person when I can with our legislators of all makes, models, ranks, parties, you name it, and advocating strongly, as I hope everybody else does, to maintain local control in our school district and not to have any unfunded mandates, as well as to stick with the highest level percentage of increase and make sure that no matter what, we eliminate, or at least partially eliminate, the cross-subsidy as much as possible.
Thank you. Director Velazquez, do you have any updates? Neither do I. I'll just reiterate future events, which are the district retirement celebration, May 18th, 3:30 to 5, and then the board study session on May 22nd here at 6 p.m. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So made.
By Director France, a second.
Second.
By Director Velazquez, all in favor?
Aye.
Passes 4-0. We're adjourned, and we'll transition to a closed meeting.